All right, cool. I guess we're live here. Yeah, so welcome back, Mr. Dragon.
Thanks for
Um,
having me.
yeah, third conversation here. Um, yeah, we might as well jump right into it. Great to have you, but yeah, let's just jump right into it. So I guess we could start off with what we were just talking about before I hit the go live button. Is you were kind of how I guess we were talking about like how I approach or how to approach adding value or creating value for the world for other people.
Yeah, because that's
And I
like your
was
current life goal, or that's like your drive forward currently. Is that a
yeah,
good way to say it?
it's a mission statement. I think that
Yeah,
again I'm gonna praise Vinland Saga again because I think season two, ever since I watched season two, it gave me kind of a visual framework or a narrative framework of if you want to move away from apathy, depression, suicide. I would even say suicidality, which I know is like probably going to block the video, but like if you want to move away from those things, it's one of those things where you want to basically make paradise on earth, right? Was kind of the basic premise of of season two,
oh
right?
yeah, that's right.
Where it's make things better for yourself, you make things better for other people. There's like this formula that the main character says where it's like you build more than you destroy, you sow more than you reap, right? Like something like that. Like that's the basic formula. And on top of that, there's this aspect of building a good character in order to facilitate this paradise because there's no point making a paradise if you're horrible and you're going to end up ruining it, right? So it needs to be, you have to have a character that can sustain the paradise, right? So
Hmm.
yeah, that's my basic mission statement. And I use that on a daily basis, at least in my morning routine to kind of get the ball rolling. And yeah, it kind of informs what I do. Yeah.
Yeah, are you still journaling as you're watching it again?
I don't rewatch it. It's been like about 2 weeks since I finished the show.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, so it's been about 2 weeks since, and so now it's just more about like routines. So I have like a Chat GPT prompt. Like I use Chat GPT for everything, but I have a Chat GPT prompt where I basically have it. Like Paradise on Earth is a very vague concept, right? And I think the cool thing about Chat GPT is in OP terms, it does my demons for me, right? So I basically tell it, I have this idea, or I have this goal of I want to make Paradise on Earth through ethical action and through the improvement of character. Like, walk me through a step-by-step routine today of how I can make that happen practically. And it'll spin up with, its suggestions of, okay, come up with the value that you want to embody right now, choose a small action to carry that forward, execute the action, reflect on the action. That's usually the formula. And so that's yeah, I do that every day. And then there's other stuff that I do throughout the day to kind of continue that momentum. So
I see. What one of the things you were saying kind of caught my attention, where you were talking about like creating a heaven on earth kind of thing, about saying that you don't want to start going that direction until your character is
I don't
more
know.
complete.
I think you can move. So the cool thing about the show is that there's two different perspectives, right? So there's a perspective of like build your character first and then move. And then there's a perspective of you just move, right? Like
Yeah,
just start working in non-ideal conditions. I
yeah.
synthesize those two. I'm like, you can do both at the same time. You can start doing external actions and you can set aside time to work on your character. And I think both can happen simultaneously. And you
It
just
seems
iterate
like you
forward.
need them both simultaneously.
I think so too. That's why I synthesize. I think that's the beauty of the show because they're foils for each other. So without spoiling it, there's Thorfinn and then there's Prince or King Canute, and they both are like these foils for paradise, right? Which approach to paradise works best, right?
Yeah,
Like a consequentialist view where the ends justify the means, in the case of Canute, or kind of a more deontological view of like there are certain character things that you need to develop, and there's certain like transformations that you need to go through in order to make this happen. In the case of Thorfinn, right?
yeah.
And I think just I don't have the luxury of time to try and be a perfect person first, but I also don't think the ends justify the means. So it's like I think you need to iterate on both all the time.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the whole needing to build the character part. Like, I feel
Yeah.
like that could play into the saying of like the road to hell is paved in good intentions.
Yeah.
And it could be like if you're approaching trying to like build something up better than it was, you might end up in a worse spot
Yeah.
if you're not like
That's
ready or
that's
like I mean,
that's what happens in the show. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
it's like hard because like as you said you have to move, but if you like it seems like if your mindset is too focused on the outcome, that's where you really get screwed. And
Yeah.
that's why it's you got to focus on the actions and direction you're heading instead.
Yeah, this kind of goes back to what I was talking to you about before we hit live, where it's like there's a deep idea of identifying with the process, right? This is something that a lot of people preach. I used to study Jordan Peterson's Maps of Meaning, like the book and the lecture series from Harvard. You know, I used to study that 7 years ago, like in 2017, 2016, whatever.
Yeah.
And that was kind of his basic conclusion is that you need to, like, he calls it the logos, you could call it identification with Christ. Like, you don't need religious or philosophical terms, though. I think, like, identify with the process of cultivation or the process of improvement, whichever one fits better in your head. Like, as long as you're the person that takes responsibility for improving things, you will get where you need to go, right?
What do you think the
So,
mechanisms are behind how we can get into the mindset to start moving in that direction?
sorry,
Like
can you yeah, go ahead.
how do we do that for ourselves?
I think it's just like maybe I'm blessed in that it's not that hard. It's just a shift. It's like, if you look at your environment, if you look at your life, if you look at the categories of life like health, relationships, work, romance, personal time, like, there are things that could be improved, right? And all you really need to do is you just switch your mindset of, okay, I this, there are things that can be improved. Let me go find something to improve, right? If it's my room, this is where Jordan Peterson's clean your room comes from, right?
Yeah.
Like, clean the room. Like, it could be that simple. If it's relationships, what I do is I just reach out to people. It's kind of funny because it's starting to become kind of like a chore now. But, like, I'll reach out to one person or two people and be like, hey, like, I hope you had a good day, or like, how are you? Or like, hey, let's talk, right? Like,
Yeah.
cultivate that relationship. Work is, I mean, there's an endless amount of things you could do at work, but so on and so forth, right? It's like they're just taking that mindset of, let me improve what I have, let me improve the situation to something better. And
Yeah.
that's essentially, yeah.
What do you think stops people from being able to achieve that mindset for themselves?
I think so. That's a good question. I think this goes. So I'm gonna leverage Peterson's dichotomy because I think that, in Maps of Meaning he talks about the process of, like he uses religious terms, but like I'm not gonna do that. How I would word it is the process of, like, arrogance or the process of, like, superiority, right? Where it's like you look at things and you think, I have it good or I have it the worst, and I'm not going to move on that, right? So instead of the opposite of
Huh.
improvement is stagnation, basically, right? So if
Yeah.
you're like, or if you think about it in like more modern terms, this is kind of the dichotomy of fixed and growth mindset, right?
Yeah.
So fixed mindset is nothing can change. I can't change anything, or you can't change anything. And I'm going to make sure that's true. Like, and I'm like, yeah, that is the opposite, right? So,
Yeah. It seems
yeah,
like it's easy for people to get stuck in the stuck mindset because they when they try to look at their life like you're saying instead of seeing areas they can be improved, they are like projecting into the future, seeing where things will probably end up and how much pain is there, which creates a lot of emotions which
yeah,
people wall off and then like don't do any of the improvements and instead push things off or cope or what have you.
yeah,
So it's like when someone is environment and mindset due to like trauma or some other factors is like at that state, it's interesting to take that into account when we're trying to process how do we get to this mindset of basically being present in the moment and I think I would label it as like uh living life to the fullest, like 100%, like
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, and I think maybe this is like a fundamental prerequisite. In order for you to make things better or identify with the process of improvement, you have to believe things can be better.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I just heard Dr. K say that exact thing on one of the streams I was listening to today.
Nice. Okay, awesome. Yeah. That belief, I think that belief comes first, actually.
Yeah, it does
So,
seem to.
yeah. And how do you develop that? I mean, this is a hard question, right? Because and this is something like as much as I don't like Peterson for being wordy and for using big words and maps of meaning, I think he
Yeah,
makes a really great point because he argues that the like you have plenty of good intellectual reasons to hate life,
yeah,
right? Or to be resentful about life. This isn't a matter of logic, right? This is a matter of faith, right? That's where like this is where Peterson says this is a religious type of decision. It's not like you're religious. You don't have to go to church, but it's a religious approach to life. It's like I believe I can like despite all the evidence, I believe that there's a better world that can be made here, right?
yeah,
Or a better experience that I can have here, right? And so you go about that like you're walking by faith, right? That's kind of like the like I'm using Christian words, but
yeah,
like that faith in the process and like you can even you even hear this when people talk about the process. It's like there's no proof the process is going to work until it
yeah,
works, right? So that you need that faith to move forward for sure.
yeah. It seems like this part of it is kind of dependent on like at what level someone's at currently with their mindset.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Like Julian himself had a good framework that I'm just remembering now, where he's got like these 7 levels. And it's like when you're at the very bottom level in that stuck mindset, it's like uh the thing you kind of do to help someone get out of that is kind of play into their issues. Like, yes, this does suck. Yes, everything's miserable. And that gives them some kind of positivity to kind of move out of that a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like instead of fighting all the negativity, they get a little bit of I can't think of the word, but just like validation.
Yeah.
And then it's like at the next level, it's just kind of like okay, now what? And that's kind of how Dr. K explained it, where he's had to work with people that come to him and say, "Oh yeah, I've been to like 12 different therapists, and none of them been able to help me.
Yeah.
And so you must be able to help me." And he's like, no, I can't help you. Like, you just went to these other 12 people. Why do you think I can help you when they can't? And then
Yeah.
that's like a starter to getting into fixing that mindset problem to reach a higher level to then go from there. And I think
Yeah.
that's really interesting. And it's been helpful for me when I was processing this, when I was first hearing it, to when I'm trying to help people, instead of like just telling them, oh, just do this or do better or whatever else, you got to be conscious enough to listen to them and understand where they are at on these different levels so you can give them what they need at that level to move to the next level up. And I
Right.
think that's a cool idea that people don't think of because we want to make it simple and just say, oh, just do XYZ, all better. But it's
Yeah.
like, because of people's own mindsets being such a big issue, it's like you really have to put attention and into that.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's a difference between like wanting to improve things and being delusional, right?
Yeah.
In order for you to like in order for you to improve something, you have to accept it for what it is, right? Which is what it sounds like you're saying. It's like
Yeah.
if the conditions suck, like you have to admit that they suck, right?
Yeah.
Like if like for example, what you were saying about the therapist, if you've been to like what was it, like 7, 10, 12 therapists and none of them worked, you can't be delusional and thinking, oh, like I'll just keep doing this process and one day it will work. That is not improvement. That is like genuine, like you're out of touch,
Yeah,
right? Im-
exactly.
Improvement is like, as you mentioned, taking that terrible situation and then like, okay, how can I get a little bit better from what I know I'm at, right?
Yeah.
So
and you gotta like have a way of opening yourself up to that new information. And
Yeah.
it's almost like a comes back to the idea we were talking before the stream about attachment and detachment.
Yeah.
It feels like part of what you were saying about some people's mindsets involves like attachment, and I don't know how to dive into that idea from here if you have anything to say on that, but it's
I think
like,
so. I think like because this kind of goes back to what, like, I think I mentioned this. What do you attach yourself with, right? Do you attach yourself with like the goal? Do you attach yourself with your suffering? Do you
and what are
attach
your
yourself
expectations?
exactly? And I think what I'm arguing through, I guess, really what I'm basically rehashing what Peterson says, but I think I agree with in this pursuit of like a better world and a better experience of the world, I guess, is you need to attach yourself, if anything, you need to attach yourself with the process of improvement itself, right? Because if you attach yourself to that process, then you can have like a good experience anywhere or a better experience anywhere. Let me put it that way, because there are some
Yeah.
situations that are terrible, right?
And I
But
feel like Dr. K explains that attaching yourself to the process as being detached. And
yeah,
he
no,
goes,
exactly. Like it's kind of meta, right? It's like
yeah,
you're detached from the specifics of your situation because like you can because you're identifying with improvement, you're not attached to the situation because your whole goal is to improve the situation.
yeah. And when you're not living in the future and projecting to the future and freaking out about the pain and unknowns and stuff like that and taking
Yeah,
the action, it's like the same thing. You're like doing what you're doing 100% in the moment.
yeah, exactly.
It's
Yeah.
really interesting.
So that's yeah. I don't know if you had anything more to say, but I mean I feel like that's what I have, and that's how I approach things. Um, I like, and again, it's easy to say all these things. I
Yeah.
think the true unlock is making it into a routine that's practical and that you use small actions to reinforce these things. I think that's an important part of the process as well. Is like I think like the whole idea of atomic habits, like the whole James Clear thing, I think
Yeah.
that's extremely important because it's like otherwise it's just a fantasy, right? It's like, oh yeah, I'm the process of improvement, yay. It's like, no, you're not. Like, go actually do some small steps to improve actual situations in your life, you know?
Yeah, it really seems to kind of come down to like why are you doing this and what is behind it. And because I don't know much about like your thought process on like heaven on earth sort of stuff and like your own current
Yeah,
goals, how you were approaching that and what was behind that. It's like it's like to how do you know if you're living in like the way you're doing things by the process or detached compared to like living in the ego or like projecting into the future or like acting out of shame or like guilt. And
yeah,
it's how it was described is like um if you pay attention to what your desires are with that, like when you think about your desire of going on this path, what do you imagine the outcome is and what do you get out of it?
mm,
And it's like when you create a point A to point B, by doing that, you can kind of follow that entire line to where it comes from, if that makes sense. Think about
okay,
like abstractly and visually. And so if you're like wanting to exercise and you're like not doing it, but you have like this desire to like exercise and you're like, oh, I'm freaking out because I'm not exercising and I want to be exercising, but I'm not doing it. And you
mm,
kind of like dig into that desire and see where that leads. And maybe it leads to like saying, oh, I want to look good so I feel sexy because I think people like looking at me.
yeah,
And then you like see that whole thing and then you kind of like take it back to like, okay, there's a issue with how I'm viewing myself where because I don't have like the internal view of myself that I'm happy with, I'm having this desire that leads to this outcome I want. And it's
yeah,
like you can see that the desire is what's kind of screwing you up along this path. And if you were to detach from it and come from more of like the authentic self sort of thing, then you can make a have a better tool to make the decision that's more long lasting to build up the habits you want, if that makes sense.
That's
It's
interesting. I wonder. I might have some pushback here. I think that I agree with the detaching part, where it's like don't get so wrapped up in like I need to exercise in order to get this, or like even I have this view of myself and I'm attached to that view.
yeah,
But
it's
I think in my model of like paradise or like making things better, the desire is gonna be there, right? There's nothing wrong with the desire, right? I think like so to this is a great example. I have a terrible view of myself, and I think I'm like straight like honestly, I think I'm ugly, I think I'm overweight, and no one's gonna like me, and blah blah blah. Blah. And maybe there's some truth to that, and maybe there isn't. But I think for me, the detachment would be accepting that desire for what it is, but then
yeah,
like questioning what the best path forward is. Because
yeah,
okay, maybe exercise is the right thing, or maybe it's there's also an element of I need to improve my view of myself, right? I need to update
yeah,
my view of myself because that's like you can exercise all you want. It's like there's people with like body dysmorphia. It's like they hate themselves, like
yeah.
honestly. And so
In
it's
your
like
example, are you attached to the desire though?
you're not attached, but you're not pushing it away either.
Exactly. It's like Dr. K used the word I kind of like, the sublimation. I guess
Sure.
when something what sublimation is like when a solid turns into a gas, it's just like the desire is kind of like dissolving. You're not pushing it away, you're not going towards it. It just kind of is what it is. And
Yeah.
then you push that to the side and then you can actually choose the actions. And that's like such a hard concept for people to understand, how you can like be in that detached state but still have these feelings and emotions and like not go towards the apathy direction, but to be like, uh
Yeah.
yes, I might feel this way and yes, this could happen, but I'm going to go this direction anyways. It's like that, being that detachment slash
Yeah.
living unpassionately, that allows you to choose a direction and go into it fully and accept the consequences that may come with it. And it's like
Yeah.
so incredibly freeing. And it feels like there's a lot more actual ability to have happiness in that,
Yeah.
along with added value to the world.
I think my I agree with that. I think we're fundamentally saying the same thing.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think for me, it's not just enough to be detached. I think it's the question is, are you attached to the right thing? I think because it's like because I think the danger is exactly what you said, where it's like you could be detached from pretty much everything, and then you go into the apathy direction and the direction.
Yeah, which I would argue isn't actually detachment. That's like an
Okay.
extreme attachment, as I was saying before we went live. It's like,
Okay.
if you look at someone that is apathetic and like disassociated, are they really detached, or are they like so attached to
Oh, I see.
avoiding the pain and being calloused to numb themselves
Yeah,
that they're not able to live life to the fullest?
that's a good
And
point.
like, because they're walling themselves off, that's the attachment that's creating that wall to
Yeah,
protect themselves, that leads to
yeah.
apathy.
I agree. I think we're saying the same thing. I think it's like you're
Yeah.
emphasizing. It's like we're emphasizing different things. I think you're
Yes.
emphasizing the detachment from that, and you're emphasizing the detachment from like anything that hinders choice. And I think
Yeah.
I'm emphasizing the like the attachment to improvement itself, which I think is I think that's a meta attachment. It's like if you're attached to improvement, then you'll do what you need to do to
But is
get
that in a is that an attachment, or is that just a more so a conscious choice, so to say?
you. I think you can frame it both ways.
Yeah.
I view it as an attachment because I do think it's I consider it like an identification. It's like I am one
Yeah.
with this process,
Okay,
right?
yeah, and it's like the direction you're choosing.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I find that very valuable. I feel like detaching from that is dangerous. So yeah,
You think detaching from that is dangerous?
from improvement, yeah.
Hmm. I might have to think about that, but why do we think it's
Why do I think it's
dangerous?
dangerous? Because I think number one, the alternative of like this apathy and this kind of blocking off from reality is a very tempting alternative. One, right? And then I think also, if you're, yeah, I think like we are creatures that are constantly in motion, humans, right? Like
Yes, but
there's
we
that classic.
also need our
Yeah.
like sleep processing rest part of it. And I
But I would
wonder,
even say I would fit that under improvement though,
you
because it's
think
like
so?
not all sleep is good sleep. It's like the sleep that rejuvenates you, the sleep that helps you resolve. I consider those forms of improvement. But
Yeah, but
like
a lot
there's
of people don't see it that way. Some people see it as like, oh, if you take a break, then you're just
oh
losing
yeah, no, no,
time, and time is money.
no,
And so if you're
I
not
mean,
progressing,
yeah, I don't mean improvement in like the capitalist sense. I mean like genuine improvement of your experience.
I think
And
that's hard for people to measure, especially when they don't know what they want as well.
well, I think people want things to be better. I know
Yeah,
I'm being a little bit reductive right now, but I think like
I don't think so.
I do think that it's not easy. Let me be very clear, but I do think it is arguably that simple. Where it's like
Yes, I would agree.
I think people want to have a better experience than what they have. I think that's the nature of humans, and I think that's good. As long as, like as you're mentioning, you're going about it in a like in the proper, in this sense, detached way, where it's like you're not attached to your version of improvement, you're attached to improvement, period, right? So it's
Yeah,
like I think that is that is what I would say. And like and to your point, sometimes improvement, like I'm taking a step back. Sometimes improvement means like taking a step back and stopping action and just enjoying the freaking moment,
yeah,
right?
100%.
The whole idea of paradise, I was telling you earlier before the stream, paradise, the root word of paradise is I think paradisia, I think it's Persian, and it means walled garden, right?
Yeah,
And so a walled garden, there's a time to cultivate, there's a time to improve, but
yeah.
sometimes you need to just enjoy the garden, right? It's like there's enough, you've done enough, right?
Hmm.
And so, okay, technically, if that means detaching from improvement, sure. I'm factoring that in because it's like
Yeah,
you're not improving the garden. That's not what I'm saying. You're improving your experience of the garden, right?
yeah.
And so sometimes that means acting and sometimes that means resting. And I think that's fine, you know?
Yeah, and I know we are pretty much saying a lot of the similar things, but
Yeah.
using a lot of different terminology. I think hopefully that's helpful for the people that listen to this to kind of whatever language they speak
Yeah.
more, they can kind of get the similar idea to kind of come to the same conclusion, and
Yeah.
hopefully there's something usable there for people to utilize it for their own lives.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah.
then I just feel like uh maybe we should go more into like how desire and attachment, like how does this catch us off guard, and how does this like completely stop or degress our progress?
Okay.
So that's like, I think that's an important thing to account for, because if you're not aware of that sort of thing and
Mhm.
not trying to be conscious and catch yourself of where you're slipping in those areas, whether it be like I don't know, lust or some other vice, then
Mhm.
it's like really changes your direction fast without you even realizing it.
Yeah. Uh That's a hard question. Maybe you take the lead on that, and I could respond. I'm sure I have thoughts on it, but like I'm not. I don't have like a pre-processed like message right now.
There was some steps that I neglected to take notes on currently about, like, it seems like one of the first steps is emotional processing, because if
Okay.
you are not in tune with your emotions
Yeah.
and being able to like feel and track what you're feeling, I think
Oh yeah.
you're going to get screwed super easily.
Oh yeah. I mean that's the measure for me. I'll speak for myself. That I mean, yeah. If I didn't have emotional awareness, it's like how would you possibly know your experience of the world is better if you're not tracking the very thing that measures that, which I think is like your subjective experience, right? And I think
Yeah.
that's a great point. I think that it surprises me, but there are people like I'm going to therapy again, and like one thing that my therapist says is like there are some people who like literally don't know how to like monitor their emotions in their body. They don't know how to do it. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's like some people, a
what?
lot of people these days apparently have alexithymia, is what they call it. It's like
Okay.
color blindness to emotions.
Right.
It, and that's
Yeah.
like, wow,
Yeah.
that sounds really tough to develop if you're at that state of
Yeah.
having
I,
that.
I think I have a friend who has that. And so I think that's a huge, yeah, that's a huge, I think that is the most important, right? I'm definitely interested in hearing the other, I guess, steps that you have. But yeah, it's like you need to monitor, like, is my experience better? Not intellectually. It's like,
Yeah,
do I actually value, like, do I actually like enjoy or find meaning? It's probably a more appropriate word. Do I
yeah,
find
that's where
meaning
it's
in
hard to
what I'm doing?
separate it.
Yeah. So yeah.
Because it's like there's the meaning part of it, and then there's just that I'm feeling this emotion. I'm having a reaction to this emotion. I want this emotion to stop. My mind is trying to get me to get this emotion to stop.
Yeah.
What do I reach for?
Yeah.
And it's like there's a lot of bad coping mechanisms when that people use for their emotional processing because they have the next step of expectations where we a lot of us have the expectations that we shouldn't feel a certain way or just shouldn't feel bad or just
Mhm.
have like a negative outlook of like this thing like doesn't feel good so I need to remove it. And it's like the expectations I think is kind of like the next step that needs solved otherwise you'll kind of get screwed up.
Yeah. Okay, so we have emotional awareness, so like even being aware of what's going on,
Yeah.
and then expectations about how you should feel instead.
Yeah,
Which I think goes
expectations.
goes back to that. I think that goes back to the idea of attachment, right? You're attached to a
Yeah.
very specific emotion. Maybe it's an emotion that you had as a kid. Maybe it's an emotion that you once felt. I mean, that's actually very interesting because I think I have expectations still of like what better constitutes. So yeah, I think yeah, letting go of those expectations and being like working, and again, I'm using religious language, but working by faith that like better could be something that I'm not used to, right? Like a
Yeah.
better experience might be like for example, a better experience, like a great example is in therapy, a better experience might be letting go of trauma, but that might require you to cry and deal with some negativity for a little while,
Yeah.
right?
It's like
Which is not
almost reminds me of the people that do exposure therapy.
exactly.
It's like you've gone through so much trauma and you need to like expose yourself to that thing without the same chemical firings or danger in order to like get yourself to be more regulated for that experience so it can doesn't control you.
Yeah.
I think is how I would say it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny they mentioned that. Exposure therapy is like that is what like to go back to maps of meaning. I know that might be my OI for today, but maps of meaning that is kind of the process he relates it to. Is like you're exposing yourself to the unknown incrementally. Is kind of how he
Yeah.
words it.
I like the term of some people that talk about this idea as like being anti-fragile or like
Yes.
defragiling yourself.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
It's like I can feel a big difference in my life when I feel like extra fragile compared to when I'm like going towards the process part of things and feeling more defragile.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean that's a really good reminder too. It's like yeah, it's like if you're so afraid of life and you're so insistent on being attached to the way that you want things. I mean, this might be my demons coming out, but it's like if you're so attached to that, it's like yeah, you are fragile. It's like
Yeah.
it's like anything that deviates from your plan of action, it's like you're done. Like so I have no interest in that. So
Yeah.
I'd much rather be adaptable. Which is hard though because it's like you want to adapt, but you want to adapt and build at the same time. Like in OP terms, that would be something like double observing.
Yeah.
Um, adapt and build, adapt and sometimes you do need to push back on some things. It's a process. So yeah, were there any other steps that you remember?
Yeah, there was something else I was gonna say first, but I forgot. I feel like the next step might be more connected to like ego part of it, and it's like, uh, I suppose stepping it off of expectations. It's like, well, who am I? Like, some people define ego as like any kind of I statement or comparison.
Yeah.
I kind of like extending that to labels. And if
Mhm.
you're like, well, I shouldn't feel this way, and then it's like the ego issue of like, who are you to feel like you deserve to not feel this way? And it feels like another kind of attachment that's like
Mhm.
disconnected from reality and kind of rejecting reality.
Yeah, I think I might we might agree. I'm just pushing back a little bit because it's like I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to feel differently. Like I'm thinking of like myself, and this is like I feel like this video is gonna get blocked when I upload it. But like I think that I'll use more neutral terms. So when it comes to like the apathy and the depression that I've experienced throughout my life, whether through for medical reasons or for personal reasons or whatever, it's like I think the most dangerous thing is to accept those feelings as they are without like because it's like I think that is the road to suicide. Genuinely, like it's like if you completely give up and you say, yeah, like I this is the way I feel and like I have no will to live and that's okay, you're done. Like you really need like intervention at that point. You know,
Y-
and
yeah,
I that is what I'm concerned about. Um, Yeah, I'd love to hear your take on that because it's like I'm sure we probably have some agreement somewhere, but
I think it kind of comes down to whether it is controlling you or you are controlling it, sort of idea.
okay. I
So
mean, yeah, go ahead.
we were just talking about wanting, it's okay to want things to be different.
Yeah,
And it's like, if you're attached to that and have the expectations and the ego around it, and you're letting that dictate your life,
I see.
then you're losing control. And it's like, I remember now, he did a cool comparison of like, it's not just attachment, it's like attachment and avoidance. So it's not only are you like unconsciously getting pulled from two things, you're getting like unconsciously rejecting things. And that's like taking a lot of your control out of your life. He would use the example of like the difference between gamblers who are attached versus detached.
Mhm.
Gamblers that are attached get carried off or carried away by like the win, and then they use that, and they're no longer like operating from like
Yeah,
a thoughtful, they're no longer like involved in the process of what they're doing because they're getting carried off by that, and they're like attached to winning, and they're like trying to move away from losing, and it's
yeah,
like taking away any of their like free will and like choices in it compared to like the gamblers that gamble dispassionately. They both of these people see like the odds at play, and
yeah.
the way they're operating with that and what's controlling them during it is like different.
Okay, that's a great distinction. I think that I need to clarify something then because I think that it sounds like what you're saying is like even the desire to wanting things to be different or wanting things to be better, you can be kind of like immersed in that, like kind of going back to like the impulsive self that we've talked about,
Yeah.
right? Where it's like you could be just like you could be unconsciously just like driven by that blindly, and you've lost, like you said, you've lost control over like decision making, you've lost control over your emotional responses, things like that. I When I talk about like being attached, I was not improvement, if you will call it that or whatever I'm calling it. It is this kind of like this it's this calmness of I am the one aware of the situation and I know where to improve like the low hanging
Yeah.
fruit.
It's like devoid of needy energy.
Exactly. It's a process. Exactly. Because I think like what you're saying is there are some people who are attached to the result of improvement, which is like
Yes, and that's like the antithesis to the process.
exactly. Exactly. I mean, this goes. I mean, you're talking about in the context of poker. I'm thinking about in the context of sports, right? Where it's like if you're attached to winning so much, it's like you become very impulsive very quickly. Whereas I forgot what coach said this, but it's like if you do all the right things, the score will take care of itself.
Yeah,
The basic idea,
and
and I think that's
it's like how much is your mind divided affecting what kind of outcome you want?
yeah,
If you're like divided yourself between like being 100% a part of the process or like splitting your mind to worry about what the outcome is or is going to be or could be, then you're like really hurting your chances of getting the outcome you actually want. Because I feel like a lot of
yeah,
people forget that they cannot control the outcome. They can only control the effort they put in, which
yeah,
is like a part of the process.
yeah. Excuse me. This is so funny because this is reminding me of work. I'm So I'm in an apprenticeship, and this is something I'm stressed about. Ironically, I'm stressed about this whole thing, this whole like outcome based, because it's like there's job conversion on the line basically. And
Yeah.
so this is actually a really great reminder of I need to attach myself more to the process, or really detach myself, however we're going to word it. Like the outcome is, and people have told me this. It's like the outcome is not in your control, right? It's like
Yeah.
if you get hired, there's a whole committee of decision makers that is like, who knows what they're factoring in? Like, hopefully they're factoring in the right things, but you don't know, right?
Yeah.
And so all you can control is it's like you control your momentum, you can control your actions. The movement forward is more important than the actual end goal, right? As
Yeah,
as scary as that is,
not being
yeah,
focused on like the not getting a certain outcome or not getting certain pain. It's like talked
yeah,
about that you should approach it from like consideration of like I'm going to choose this path, this or this could happen. I'm going to accept whatever consequences come. I feel like that acceptance part is another part of like the process, and it
yeah,
allows you to do something more like 100%.
yeah, exactly, yeah,
But it's
nice,
like with that fear and like me being a FE last, it's like that emotional processing always seems to like get me, and it's so easy to get caught up on wanting to avoid the negative emotions, and like maybe it involves play last too. I just don't want to move because it's like there's consequences in both directions, and I get so focused on just not having any consequences that the only option feels like it's not to move, which has a lot of negative effects on its own. So
yeah,
it's just like, how do you start getting moving again? And for me, after a recent low, it was just to like keep telling myself, it's just effort, like just focus on the effort, focus on the effort. And it's like, dang, this is hard. I mean, as you said, it's simple but not easy.
yeah, exactly. Nice. Okay. That was interesting. We talked like for like 40 minutes about the same topic, which is awesome.
I think it's good.
Um, I'm curious if you wanted to, switch gears, or did you want to continue down this path? I just wanted to open up for you to make a choice there.
Huh. I don't know if I have too much more to say on the topic besides like since I'm trying to play Tekken again and how it affects me so emotionally, um, it's so hard for me to stay conscious, but I'd really like to apply some of this to that, where when I play, I want to not think about winning or what my health is at compared to what their health is at, and just focus on like the actual actions I'm taking. And
Yeah.
whatever happens, I don't want to be thinking about, oh, I messed up that punish while we're already way past that point and now I'm getting juggled in the air by the opponent. It's
Yeah.
like I want to detach from my expectations when playing a game like that. And it's like
Yeah.
hard, but it's like this Tekken seems like a really good growth path for me because of like the desire issues and like this whole idea here. because
Yeah.
it's like I really want to improve. Like I need to keep up there with like the skill level of my friends, but I have to like let that go because if I'm focusing on that, I'm not focusing on the actions, and if I'm attaching my stuff or like my ego's too involved with the outcomes, I'm not going to be able to grow from that process of like what did I do, what worked, what didn't work, and why.
Mhm. Tekken's a great example too, because I think fighting games in general, like they're designed to get you like animalistically wired up.
It's
Like
so
it's like
weird.
they're very fast paced, right? It's like there some things happen that are not fair in Tekken. I
It's
don't know if
you
you've seen
versus the other person. It's just
that.
one on one. There's
Yeah.
nothing else to it. And like I used to play Overwatch and I liked the team environment so much more. I
Mhm.
liked playing support. I liked like being able to for everyone else to like win the game for me. But it's like you get so many people caught up in like blaming their team and stuff, or they have a thrower. And
Yeah.
actually, Dr. K used some of that in his like example of expectations. It's like, oh, you queue up for like a match of like League of Legends, for example,
Mhm.
and you're upset that there's like a thrower on your team. It's
Mhm.
like you knew there was this chance when you hit like start match that this was a possibility. Why are you getting upset about it? And it kind of goes back to like the whole idea of attachment and how it affects us and controls
Yeah.
us in like so many different ways. It's kind of like funny because you think about that. You're playing a video game and there's other players. Of course, there's a chance of like it not going your way. Why are
Yeah.
you mad? And it's like that emotional processing part of it just uh, maybe it's because of my type, but it's just so magical to me. It's like a black box.
Yeah, no, I think that's actually really great. I didn't think of using video games as a means of like it's like you're emotionally training yourself for
Yeah.
life, right? I do
Yeah.
know if you know Lindsay or Lijo,
Yeah.
she does the same thing with poker. So it's actually kind of a similar concept, right? So you're playing this game and she's using it to train. I think she has videos on this. So like
Yeah.
fine. It's like she talks about how she's using it to train her like SE or whatever, like in OP terms. Like
Yeah.
she's training her awareness of like the dynamics and also emotional. Cause
Yeah.
like you can make very emotional decisions in poker, or you can make very rational, detached decisions. And like, yeah, it's like it's this training.
It's
I
so weird.
I don't know if I have like a training mechanism like that. I think I just kind of go like I just use ChatGPT for training myself. Like, and I don't use I haven't used video games really.
Yeah.
Um, I think the I think the last video game that I did that with was Fire Emblem. So I have a Switch, and so
Yeah.
I play Fire Emblem Three Houses, which is a great game. Great game. I would get so tilted on that game because it's like there would just be unfair situations left and right, and
Yeah.
like the situations are fabricated. So it's so like I feel like at the very least with Tekken and stuff like that, it's usually fair. It's I mean there are some glitches and some stuff like that.
It depending on your like your knowledge, like I feel like there's so many
Yeah,
situations I don't understand. And because I'm like so I play in a very like NE way where I have like expectations of what I think will happen or what should happen
yeah,
based on what actions I take. And when like I don't know if it's masculine intuition or what, but when things just happen and they don't happen like they should have in my head, that's like a really weird like triggering point.
yeah.
But
And I think like with Fire Emblem, I'm playing like computer simulate like situations, right?
yeah,
It's a story mode. And like there would just be plenty of unfair situations where it's like all of a sudden you'd get ambushed out of nowhere and like like all like it's one of those games where it's like if you die, like your characters die like permanently,
yeah,
like a Nuzlocke in Pokemon. And so I would just get tilted if like literally if anyone died. Like I'm like I would like restart the game. I would like
yeah,
totally
me
cheat.
too.
Like I'm like I'm not taking this, you know. So it's one of those things where to go back to what you're talking about, I think these are really great. I need to find something like that where it's like you have
Yeah,
this emotional training for life. I think Tekken's a great example. I think poker's a great example. I guess I need to really think about what my example is going to be.
Yeah.
But
Do you
yeah,
ever get jealous of people that can play a game like Fire Emblem and let what happens and just continue on? Like, I've seen, like, some streamers, like, I feel like one guy's, like, some kinda EP, and he
yeah.
does that all of the time, and I'm like, "I'm so jealous because I feel like I can't do that." It's like, I feel the
I
same as you.
I think I'm still too attached because as you saw, like I was about to curse right there. I was like I'll say like it was a hell no response for me. I'm like, dude, I'm not letting anyone die. But yeah, I think it's admirable, like for someone to treat a video game as a video game. Like it's not
And
that
it's like, what kind
serious.
of experience do they get from that? Like, how
Yeah,
much better
exactly.
is their experience
Yeah,
in,
yeah, they're
like,
chilling.
that?
Yeah, they're chilling. I
Done.
know. Yeah. Anyway, I'm thinking of some reaction channels that are exactly like that, which is so funny. But yeah, it's funny because it tilts the audience, but they're like, whatever, like, they
Yeah.
died, whatever.
Like, there's
So,
that really big fighting game YouTuber, Maximilius dude or Maximilian
oh
dude, I
yeah,
forget which one.
yeah, no, he's
It's
great.
like the way he goes about things, it's like in a very detached way, and he still gets emotional or like yells a little bit, but it's like
Yeah,
people that are like in that detached state, it's like you can really see who those people are, and like the I have so much admiration for that
yeah,
because it's like understanding kind of now what it takes to get to that point, and like I'm assuming like they had to go through their own journey to get to that point, and thinking
yeah,
about that and processing that through the decider standpoint is like, wow,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
impressive.
Nice. All right, cool.
um
I Go ahead.
I was just gonna think if we had a little bit extra time we could maybe workshop a little bit of like what game you could maybe practice with,
Yeah,
but
I have like
I know we're
about
getting
five.
close to time.
I have like 5-10 minutes. So yeah, so
You have a Switch only?
I have a Switch only. Yeah, like I wish I had a PS5 or whatever. Like the game that I really want to play, if I'm being honest, is Black Myth Wukong, the new one.
Oh yeah.
That looks really fun. Everyone says it's going to be game of the year. I believe it because I've watched playthroughs and I'm
Yeah,
like, this looks awesome, right?
it's like the
Yeah.
story and stuff and authentic like
Oh yeah.
historical parts of it, like, I can definitely see the appeal from what I've seen on it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think it's one of those things where um I how do I word it? It's like that game. I feel like ideally that'd be the game, but I
Yeah.
think in my life, so the game that I'm currently playing, maybe I could use that one. Is I'm playing the new Zelda game.
Oh, yeah, I saw that too, that looks kinda fun.
That one, but here's the thing about that game. That game is kind of already inherently detached because it's like it's already doing auto saves.
Yeah.
There's no stakes,
Yeah,
right?
I
It's like,
saw that
all
coming.
right, yeah, it's like, all right, like, I died, whatever. Like that is the reaction. I'm like, all right, whatever. Like, it'll just
Yeah.
restart me at the beginning. So I don't know. I have to think about that. I think that I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if it's gonna be a video game necessarily. I think this might just be like something that I try and do socially, like the
Yeah, it could
social
be.
game, because I do also get very attached like to like how people respond to me, whether they like what I said or not, or like I'm
Yeah,
very like how many likes I got versus another person got, like all
I
this
feel
silly
that.
stuff. I think that being very like to go back to what I was saying at the very beginning, just attaching myself to the process of improvement, right? And saying, you know what? Like, this might not have been the best, but it's like, let me make it a little bit better. Let me make it a little bit better and
Yeah,
do those little tiny investments. I think that that might be the game for me. So, like the game.
yeah.
So, I think that might be it.
And you said you're in an apprenticeship, right?
Oh, that too, actually. That's another
I
great
I'm
area.
I'm
Yeah.
hoping you process some of what we talked about in reference to that, because 'cause it'd be cool to, like, hear your story when things progress more of, like, maybe after this conversation, how your mindset changed and what the
Yeah.
outcome of it was from that.
Well, you're gonna find out. I mean, the next time we have a conversation is probably when I find out the decision, because
Oh,
the apprenticeship is almost over.
wow.
Yeah, I've been in it for like 5.5 months. So like in 2 weeks, I'm gonna find out. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Exciting.
Yeah. So this whole idea of like the outcome versus the process and like the improvement and all that stuff, like I really need to integrate that into how I approach things and how I see things, because yeah, I mean time is running out. Like the outcome is coming. you know.
Yeah.
So,
I felt like we were probably on the same page with like this whole area of like trying to apply it to our life. So I thought it would be a
oh yeah,
good topic.
I think that'd be good. Yeah, next time, yeah, I'll definitely, you know, we could kind of continue on that. Okay, cool. Was there anything else like
Nope, I
last
am
minute
good.
thoughts? You're good. Okay, cool. So yeah, maybe we could just call it here. Yeah, as always, thank you so much. You know, feel free to hang around after because I do want to kind of, you know, touch base with you behind the scenes.
Sure.
But yeah, for everyone else, you know, thank you so much for watching. I saw a couple of comments come through. I don't know how I'm gonna handle comments because it's like I don't want this to feel like an interview, like or pressure you, but
Yeah, I
um
have it pulled up on my other
oh, okay, cool.
screen
Okay, yeah, you
so I
see them
can
too.
watch them.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, so we definitely saw those. So thank you all so much for coming through and kind of conversating. And yeah, hope you guys have a great rest of the day and see you in the next one. Take care.
Bye bye.